The strange room. Min had just moved into a new rented room in a quiet neighborhood. The room was on the third floor of an old building, no one lived on the second floor, and the landlord said that very few people rented here because the third floor was often abandoned. But for Min, the price was affordable and the quietness was the most important thing. He didn't care too much about the rumors. On the first day, Min moved his belongings into the room. The room was quite spacious, with a large window overlooking the back of the neighborhood. However, there was one strange thing: a small wooden door on the inside wall of the room, unlocked, and could be opened with a light push. The door led to a dark room, without electricity, and looked like it had been abandoned for a long time. The landlord didn't explain anything about this room except for a short sentence. "Don't open that door." Min didn't ask any more questions and thought it was just a harmless reminder. Anyway, he had no reason to open that strange door. A knock at midnight. A few nights later, Min began to feel uneasy. Every night, when he had just fallen asleep, a soft knock sounded, as if someone was knocking on the wooden door. Min did not think it could be anything strange, because he was still new, and thought it might be the sound of the old house. But then, the knocking became more and more unusual. It was clear and regular, as if someone was standing right behind the door, knocking on the door to call him. The first time, Min tried to ignore it and not care. But the second time, the knocking became clearer and longer. Min began to feel uneasy. To try to figure out what was going on, Min decided to go closer to the door and listen more carefully. The door was still silent. Min frowned, slightly annoyed at being disturbed at this late hour. He thought to himself that he might have misheard. But as soon as Min returned to bed and lay down, the knocking sounded again. Knock, knock, knock. Min's skin crawled. He stood up, turned back to the door and looked into the darkness behind. The small door was still standing still, nothing had changed. But a strange feeling enveloped Min. He felt like someone was staring at him from behind the door. Min took a few steps back, his hands trembling as he pulled the blanket up, trying to sleep. Strange phenomena. A few days later, Min no longer heard the knocking. But strange phenomena began to appear. Every morning when Min woke up, he noticed that the small wooden door was always slightly open. At first, Min thought it might be the wind or someone accidentally opened it, but as time went on, the door opened a little more, making him feel uneasy. One day, Min decided to check the room behind the door. He took a flashlight, opened the door, and entered the dark room. The space inside was cold, and a strong musty smell was emitted. Min shined the light around and saw an old wooden table, on which was a small box. Curiosity arose, Min approached and opened the box. Inside was an old photo of a woman with a frightened expression. She stood in front of this room, looking towards the door with a desperate look. Min didn't know who she was, but fear began to rise in his heart. Just then, the door behind him slammed shut automatically. Min was startled, but when he turned around, there was nothing there. However, Min felt a cold wind from inside, as if someone was standing there, but he couldn't see them. The feeling of unease began to increase. He quickly walked out, closed the door tightly, and did not dare to return to that room again. The whisper from inside. The following nights, Min no longer heard the knocking on the door, but he began to hear whispering from the other side of the door. Every night, when the darkness enveloped the room, Min heard a woman's voice whispering. The story was unclear, just small, vague sounds, as if the person was trying to say something but couldn't. The feeling of fear increased more and more. Min decided to tell the whole story to the landlord, hoping to receive an explanation. The horror story. The landlord, when he finished listening to Min's story, his face became silent. He sighed, looked at Min and said, "I didn't intend to tell you, but perhaps you should know. The owner said that the room Min was staying in used to belong to a young girl named Lan. She was a student who lived in this room many years ago. One night, she mysteriously disappeared, no one knew where she went. However, after a long search, people discovered that she had committed suicide in that very room, and some people said that she was still wandering around this place, unable to leave. That door was where she tried to escape. But in the end, she couldn't escape herself, the owner said, his voice dropping. The unusual disappearance. The following night, Min couldn't sleep. He felt that the room was getting stranger and stranger. When he decided to leave the room to take a walk, he noticed something strange. The small wooden door was no longer there. It had disappeared. Min did not understand what was happening. Was Lon still around somewhere, or was this room itself trying to take over his?